In a quiet city, where ordinary people lived their usual lives, something very unusual was about to happen. A woman appeared who was unlike anyone had ever seen before. She looked like a normal human, but there was something different about her. Her eyes shone with a strange light, and her movements were smooth and almost too perfect. People often noticed her, but no one could really understand where she had come from. This woman was not from the earth everyone knew. She came from a faraway place, so far that it was hard to even imagine. She was what some would call an alien, but she did not look frightening or strange in the usual way. Instead, she looked calm, kind, and a little lonely. She had traveled a long way from her home world, hoping to find a place where she could live peacefully. But life on Earth was not easy for her. People here did not know much about her kind. They did not understand her customs, her way of thinking, or even why she had come. Many people were afraid or suspicious. The laws and the culture of this planet made it hard for her to live as she wanted. She needed something important, a connection with a human man. Not because she loved one yet, but because she needed to be accepted and protected in this new world. Being married to a human man would help her fit in, give her rights, and make life safer. She made a decision. Instead of waiting for love or chance, she would find a human man by choice. She put up a notice, a message asking for a man who would agree to marry her. But this was not an ordinary marriage. It was a partnership, a deal to help each other. She would offer kindness, respect, and maybe even a new kind of friendship. The man who accepted would gain something unique too, a chance to be part of something bigger and mysterious. Many men saw the notice but ignored it. Some thought it was a joke or a trick. Others were afraid of what people would say or think if they married someone so different. But one man stood out. His name was David. David was an ordinary man with a simple life. He worked in a small shop, lived alone, and had never had many chances for adventure. Yet inside him, there was a quiet desire to experience something new, something meaningful. When David read the notice, he felt curious. The idea of marrying an alien woman was strange and even a little scary, but also exciting. He did not believe in fairy tales or fantasies, but he wanted to understand the real story behind this mysterious woman. He wrote back, agreeing to meet her and talk. For David, this was the beginning of an adventure he could never have imagined. The day they met, the city was calm, and the sun was shining softly. David waited in a small park where they had agreed to meet. He watched the crowd, wondering how the woman would look. Then she appeared. She walked toward him with a graceful step, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of hope and seriousness. She wore simple clothes, but there was a quiet strength in her presence. They talked for a long time. She told him about her home, a world full of stars and wonders, very different from Earth. She explained why she needed a husband, not because she wanted to trick or use him, but because she needed safety, respect, and someone to stand with her in this new life. David listened carefully. He did not understand everything, but he felt her honesty and the loneliness in her voice. David told her about his own life, his dreams, and his fears. He explained that he had never expected to be in such a situation, but he was willing to try. They agreed on simple rules. This was a partnership at first, and they would take things one step at a time. Neither promised love right away, but both hoped to find trust. Their first days together were full of new experiences. The alien woman showed David things he had never seen, small wonders of her world and her way of looking at life. David, in return, introduced her to the simple joys of Earth, walking in the park, eating favorite foods, and listening to music. They learned to understand each other's languages and gestures, sometimes laughing when they made mistakes. People around them noticed the couple. Some were curious, others doubtful. The city was not always kind to those who were different, and David and the alien woman faced whispers and strange looks. But they held on to their agreement and to the hope that they could make this unusual marriage work. David sometimes wondered what the future would hold. Was this just a business deal or the start of something more? The alien woman seemed to be searching too, not just for safety, but for a place to belong, a home where she could be herself. Their journey had just begun, but already their lives were changing in ways neither had expected. As the days passed, the bond between them grew quietly. They were learning that sometimes the most unusual meetings can lead to the strongest connections. And so, in the middle of a world full of ordinary people, two very different souls found a way to come together, starting a story that was both strange and beautiful. After their first meeting, David and the alien woman began to spend more time together. They knew that their relationship was unusual, but both wanted to give it a chance. The alien woman, whose name was Lyra, had many things to teach David about her world and culture. And David had much to show Lyra about life on Earth. At the beginning, their conversations were slow and careful. Lyra spoke in a soft voice, choosing her words with care. She explained that on her home planet, people valued peace and balance. They lived in harmony with nature and technology, but their rules about marriage and family were very different from those on Earth. Marrying someone was a serious decision, often made to protect both families or communities. Lyra said that coming to Earth alone was difficult because she did not have family or friends here. David listened with great interest. He had never imagined there were such different ways of living in the universe. Sometimes he felt like he was learning a new language, not just in words but in feelings and customs. Lyra also asked many questions about Earth. She was curious about small things, how people smiled to show friendliness, how meals were shared, and how people showed care without words. They began to share small daily routines. David taught Lyra how to use a smartphone and helped her navigate the city. Lyra showed David a small crystal from her planet that glowed softly in the dark. She explained that it helped her feel connected to her home, even when she was far away. David found it beautiful and held it carefully, feeling the soft warmth. Over time, trust grew between them. Lyra trusted David enough to share more about why she needed a husband. She told him that Earth's laws required her to have a human spouse in order to live here safely. Without this, she could be forced to leave or face danger. David understood the seriousness of her situation and felt a strong desire to help. David, too, opened up. He spoke about his loneliness and how life had felt empty sometimes. He never imagined that marrying an alien woman would be possible, or that it could bring meaning to his life. He began to see Lyra not just as a stranger, but as someone special. Though their marriage was still new, they faced small challenges. Sometimes, Lyra found human customs confusing. For example, she didn't always understand why people greeted each other with a handshake or a hug. David gently explained these things, making her laugh when she tried to copy the strange gestures. He admired her patience and willingness to learn. Lyra, on the other hand, introduced David to ideas from her planet that made him think differently. She talked about the importance of nature and the stars, and how her people believed every living thing had a spirit. David found these ideas peaceful and calming. They would sometimes sit quietly at night, looking up at the sky, sharing stories of their worlds. Their neighbors began to notice them as a couple. At first, there were whispers and sideways glances. Some people found it hard to accept their unusual marriage. David and Lyra could feel the distance, but decided not to let it stop them. Instead, they focused on building their trust and friendship. One day, David invited Lyra to meet a few of his close friends. He wanted them to understand her better and to see that she was kind and honest. At first, his friends were surprised and had many questions, But as they spent time together, they began to accept Lyra as part of David's life. Lyra also wanted to give back to the community. She found a small garden nearby and started helping to plant flowers and vegetables. She loved working with the earth, and this helped her feel connected to the planet. David often joined her, and they shared quiet moments in the fresh air. Their life together was not perfect. Sometimes they faced misunderstandings. There were moments when Lyra felt homesick and missed her family and friends. David tried his best to comfort her, but he knew he could never fully understand her pain. He promised to stay by her side, no matter what. At other times, David struggled with the attention their relationship brought. People stared or whispered, and sometimes he felt judged. But Lyra reminded him that their bond was real and important, no matter what others thought. As the weeks passed, their relationship deepened. They began to rely on each other, not just for protection or legal reasons, but for emotional support. They celebrated small victories together, like Lyra learning to cook a simple Earth meal or David understanding a story from Lyra's home planet. They also faced practical problems. Lyra needed official documents to live and work on Earth, and David helped her with the paperwork. They visited government offices where Lyra's true identity was a secret to most, and where they had to explain their marriage many times. This was stressful, but they faced it as a team. One evening, after a long day, they sat together in their small apartment. The city lights twinkled outside the window. Lyra looked at David and smiled softly. She said that she was grateful for his kindness and patience. David smiled back and said he was happy to have her in his life. They understood that their journey was just beginning. They had much to learn about each other and about the world they now shared. But they felt hopeful. The alien woman and the human man had found a way to come together, not just as partners in an agreement, but as friends building trust and understanding. In the quiet moments, they dreamed of a future where their love, whatever form it might take, could grow strong enough to face any challenge. Together, they had started something rare and beautiful, a connection that crossed worlds and brought hope to two very different lives. As time passed, David and Lyra's unusual marriage began to attract more attention. Living together as a human and an alien was not something most people had seen before. Some neighbors were curious, while others were confused or even suspicious. This new attention brought challenges that tested their growing bond. At first, the couple tried to live quietly, keeping their daily lives simple. But rumors spread quickly in the neighborhood. People whispered about the strange woman and the man who married her. Some neighbors asked questions behind their backs. A few even avoided them completely. David noticed these changes and felt a mix of frustration and sadness. He wanted to protect Lyra from the harshness of people's judgments. Lyra, however, remained calm. She had faced difficulties before, and she understood that being different could sometimes mean being alone. Still, she did not want to hide. She believed that if people got to know her, they would see she was not dangerous or strange. She was simply someone trying to live peacefully. One day, as they walked through a busy market, a group of people stopped and stared. A man asked loudly, "Is she really an alien? Are you sure this marriage is real?" The question hurt David more than he expected. He wanted to defend Lyra, but he also worried about causing a scene. Lyra stepped forward calmly and said, "I am different, yes, but I am here with David by choice. Our marriage is real because we respect and care for each other." Her voice was steady and sincere. Some people listened, but others just shook their heads and walked away. The couple knew that they would face more moments like this. Society was not always ready to accept what it did not understand, but they chose to stand together. They learned to be patient and kind, even when others were not. At home, they talked about their experiences and feelings. David shared how lonely he felt when people stared or whispered. Lyra listened and held his hand, reminding him that their bond was stronger than outside opinions. She told him stories from her planet where people celebrated differences and valued kindness above all else. Lyra also taught David ways to stay calm and focused. She showed him breathing exercises that helped him feel peaceful when facing stress. David practiced these every day and began to notice how they helped him stay strong. Meanwhile, the couple found support from unexpected places. A kind woman from their neighborhood, Mrs. Patel, invited them to her home for tea. She had heard their story and wanted to show kindness. Mrs. Patel shared advice about facing difficult neighbors and told them about her own experiences as someone who had moved from another country. Encouraged by Mrs. Patel's friendship, David and Lyra began to open up more. They joined a small community group that welcomed people from different backgrounds. Here, they found others who understood what it meant to be different and who supported their journey. Despite these new friendships, there were still moments of fear. One evening, when David came home late, he found the front door of their apartment had been scratched. There was a note on the ground with harsh words, telling them to leave. David felt anger and worry, but did not want to frighten Lyra. They decided to report the incident to the local authorities. At the police station, Lyra's true identity had to remain secret, so David spoke on her behalf. The officers listened carefully and promised to keep an eye on their safety. This experience made David realize how serious the situation was. Lyra comforted David, reminding him that they were stronger together. She said, "We will face these challenges side by side. Fear will not control us." David believed her words and felt grateful for her strength. Over time, their marriage became a symbol in the neighborhood. Some people admired their courage and respect for each other. Others slowly changed their minds about them. Children would wave and smile when they saw Lyra and David walking together. Little by little, they were accepted. One weekend, the couple decided to host a small gathering at their home. They invited neighbors, friends, and members of the community group. Lyra cooked dishes from her home planet, using recipes she had adapted with David's help. The food was new and interesting, and many guests enjoyed trying it. During the gathering, David spoke openly about their journey. He explained that marriage was more than just love. It was about trust, support, and understanding. Lyra shared stories about her planet and how she hoped to build a peaceful life here. Their honesty and warmth touched many hearts. The gathering was a success. It helped break down walls of fear and misunderstanding. Neighbors who had once been distant came closer. The couple felt hope that acceptance was growing. Despite the positive moments, David and Lyra knew their journey was far from over. They still faced legal hurdles, cultural differences, and personal struggles. But now they faced these challenges with new friends and a stronger community. One night, after a long day, they sat together watching the stars. Lyra pointed to the sky and said, "Those stars are part of my home. Even though I am far away, I carry them with me." David smiled and held her hand. "And now, wherever we go, we carry each other." Their unusual marriage had faced fear, doubt, and judgment, but it had also created something rare, a bond built on courage, respect, and growing love. Together, they were learning that the most difficult paths often lead to the most meaningful destinations. As the days went by, something unexpected began to happen between David and Lyra. What had started as a simple agreement to marry for protection and companionship slowly began to change into something deeper. They found themselves caring for each other in ways neither had planned. At first, their relationship was based on rules and understanding. They knew this marriage was not like others, and they promised to keep their feelings separate from their agreement. But as they spent more time together, sharing meals, stories, and quiet moments, their connection grew stronger. David began to notice small things about Lyra that made him smile. The way her eyes lit up when she discovered something new on Earth, or how she always listened carefully when he spoke. He appreciated her kindness and gentle nature. He found himself wanting to protect her, not just because of the agreement, but because he cared deeply. Lyra, too, felt a change inside her. Living on Earth had been lonely at first, but now she felt a warmth she had not known before. David's presence made her feel safe and accepted. She admired his patience and the way he tried to understand her world. Sometimes she would catch herself thinking about him even when they were apart. One afternoon, David surprised Lyra with a small gift. It was a book of Earth poems he thought she might like. Lyra was touched. She carefully turned the pages, reading the simple words about love, hope, and nature. The poems helped her understand human feelings better. She smiled and thanked him softly. They began to share more personal stories. Lyra spoke about her family on her home planet, how she missed them and hoped to visit one day. David told her about his childhood and dreams he had set aside. These conversations brought them closer, breaking down the walls they had built. Sometimes they disagreed or found it hard to understand each other. Lyra's way of thinking was different, and David's reactions sometimes surprised her. But, instead of arguing, they learned to listen and explain gently. Their patience for each other grew. One evening, Lyra cooked a special meal from her planet. The smells were new to David, but he tried everything and smiled after each bite. They laughed together when he accidentally made a funny face at a spicy dish. Moments like these filled their home with happiness and light. As their bond deepened, they began to think about the future differently. The idea of their marriage being just a contract seemed less important. They talked about what they wanted: to build together, a home, a life filled with understanding and respect. David realized he wanted to be more than just a hired husband. He wanted to be a true partner in every way. Lyra felt the same, though she was careful with her words, knowing how different their worlds were. One day, Lyra shared a secret with David. On her planet, marriage was not just between two people. It was a joining of energies that created a new kind of connection. She said she wanted to try this with him, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. David was curious, but also a little nervous. Lyra explained that it was a gentle way to share feelings and trust, something like holding hands but deeper. They sat quietly, hands touching, and felt a warm energy flow between them. It was a moment of closeness they both treasured. Their relationship was changing in small but important ways. They were becoming a true team, not just for survival but for love. This change gave them hope and strength to face the challenges still ahead. Outside their home, the world was slowly changing too. Some neighbors who had once been distant began to smile and greet them warmly. The small community group they joined welcomed them as a couple, and their friends grew in number. Despite this, life was not always easy. They still faced questions from officials and strangers. Some people did not understand or accept their marriage, but David and Lyra no longer felt alone. They stood together, stronger than before. One difficult moment came when Lyra received news from her home planet. There was an important event, and she was invited to return for a short time. The idea of leaving Earth and David was painful. She wondered if she could go without breaking the bond they had built. David supported her decision, even though it was hard. He promised to wait for her and to keep their connection alive. Lyra left with hope and love in her heart, knowing that this was not goodbye, but part of their journey. While Lyra was away, David missed her deeply. He spent time thinking about their time together and what they meant to each other. He realized that their relationship was no longer just an agreement. It was real. When Lyra returned, their reunion was full of joy and relief. They hugged tightly, feeling the bond that distance had not broken. Their time apart made them appreciate each other even more. Together, they faced the future with courage. Their marriage, once a simple contract, had become a story of growth, trust, and true partnership. They knew many challenges awaited them, but they were ready. David and Lyra had discovered something rare, a connection that crossed worlds and changed their lives forever, and they were only beginning to explore what that meant. After Lyra returned from her home planet, the life they had built together felt even stronger. Their connection had deepened through time, distance, and understanding. They no longer saw themselves as just an alien woman and a human man who had made an agreement. Instead, they were partners, ready to face the world together. Life was still full of challenges, but David and Lyra met them with courage and hope. They worked together to solve problems, always supporting one another. Lyra learned more about Earth's customs, and David continued to learn about her culture. They discovered that love was not just about feelings, but about commitment, respect, and shared dreams. The community around them changed too. Slowly, more people accepted their marriage. Some neighbors who once whispered now greeted them warmly. Children smiled when they saw the couple walking hand in hand. Even those who were unsure began to see that David and Lyra were a good team, living honestly and kindly. One day, David and Lyra decided to make their marriage official in the eyes of the law. They wanted to show the world that their bond was real and strong. The process was not easy. They faced many questions and forms, and sometimes people doubted their story. But they were patient and persistent. With help from friends and legal experts, they completed the paperwork and held a simple ceremony. The ceremony was small but full of meaning. Their friends, neighbors, and community members came to celebrate. Lyra wore a beautiful dress from her home planet, and David wore his best suit. They exchanged rings that symbolized their promise to stand together through all challenges. After the ceremony, they shared a quiet moment. David looked into Lyra's eyes and said, "We have come so far, and I am grateful every day to have you by my side." Lyra smiled and replied, "Together, we are stronger than any difference. Together, we are home." Their story became an inspiration to many. People admired their courage to break barriers and build a new kind of family. They showed that love and trust could cross worlds, cultures, and fears. David and Lyra also worked to help others who felt different or alone. They joined groups that supported people from diverse backgrounds. Lyra gave talks about her experiences, helping others understand the value of kindness and acceptance. David volunteered to help those who faced difficulties like he once had. As time passed, their love grew deeper. They found joy in simple things, walking in the park, cooking meals, together, watching stars at night. They built a home filled with laughter, respect, and understanding. Sometimes they talked about the future. They dreamed of traveling together, exploring more of Earth, and maybe even visiting Lyra's home planet again. They wanted to learn and grow, always side by side. Their marriage was no longer just a legal agreement. It was a journey of two souls from different worlds who chose each other every day. They learned that love is about patience, kindness, and courage. It is about facing the unknown together and finding strength in unity. David and Lyra's story showed that differences can be beautiful and that friendship and love can bloom in the most unexpected places. They proved that even when the world seems divided, connection and understanding can bring people together. In the end, they found not just safety or acceptance, but something far more valuable, a true partnership built on trust and love. And, with that, they faced the future with open hearts, ready to write the next chapter of their extraordinary life together.